Rosemary, it is always a pleasure to see you. Before we even start, I have to say thank you so much for being my date when we went to go see a Mervish production. It was so much fun, not just getting a chance to see you, but we hadn't had, I don't know when the last time you and I actually had a conversation in person, and you made the night fly for me because the conversation was so great and so nice. Thank you so much for coming with me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I had a ball. I mean, I honestly didn't know what I was going to. And when I was there, it was so much, so unexpected. I'm in the theater and I'm seeing people I would never have expected standing up and dancing. It's like, okay, this is definitely something new and amazing. I enjoyed it.
Well,
It
you
was
are you are amazing.
Thank you. And it was great meeting you. I meeting you again. It's been a while, as you said. I really appreciated the invitation, and I really had a good time with you. I mean, it was good to catch up and good to be there. And so thank you so much. I hope we can do it again sometime soon. And this is just as a friend thing, in case any girlfriends listening, just a friend thing.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a friend thing for me, so I'm letting people know that. No, we will definitely do it again in 2024. That is a promise. And that's one of the big things that we're talking about right now because we're going into 2024. We're in the holiday season, and something very important happens in the community on the 26th. What is going on the 26th of December?
Well, Kwanzaa begins, and that's a pretty amazing thing for a lot of people who are involved in the African Canadian community, but even people who are not Black can celebrate Kwanzaa. And I don't have a list of some of the public events that are going on that will be happening on the 26th or maybe in advance of, but it's a wonderful kind of celebration that you can actually just do in your own home. It's an act of mindfulness, and so anybody can do it anytime.
Let's look at a little bit of the history on when this was created and why.
Hmm. Well, we have, as you know, in our history and in our experience, there are times when things come to a head. And in the 1960s, things came to a head, especially in California. And it led to what are known as the Watts riots. And it was very destructive because at the end of the riots, while it was an opportunity for people to vent their frustrations, at the end of the riots, their communities that they lived in and the businesses that they interacted with were destroyed. And so it was a moment of, I don't want to call it pleasure, but a moment of expression. And it
Yeah.
was left by a whole lot of devastation. And so people who were involved in academia and in community and who were doing a lot in terms of Black history work, because Black History Month was beginning to really take hold, felt that something more was needed to, instead of a cultural revolution that was destroying things, that there'd be a cultural revolution that could help to build up and maybe create something new. So something called Kwanzaa was developed by Dr. Marenge, and he was able to give a new direction and a new push to some of the feelings that people had around this time so that they could find a more positive outlay of their needs. And it was also to help to counteract some of the commercialism that is fortunately a part of Christmas too. If you could find a way to return to African values, find a way to return to things that are more meaningful and based in purpose and spirituality, that might be a better approach. So that's kind of how Kwanzaa was born.
And Kwanzaa, the name itself, that's an African name, correct?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is based in most of the language used in Kwanzaa, even the name. And when we, get into further into the discussion, these are all Swahili terms because Swahili is one of the, if there is a national language of Africa, which is a continent, that African language would be Swahili. So Kwanzaa means first fruits. And the festival itself, the holiday itself, is based in um, early African commemorations of the first fruit, early African celebrations that took place around the same time of year, January, well, in our calendar now, January, December, January. So, yeah, it's a Swahili term.
So that explains the fruit that I have here. That explains the fruit I have here. But we need to explain what this is, these candles, and how the colors represent and how this represents Kwanzaa. How does this represent Kwanzaa, please?
Okay. So again, Kwanzaa means matunda ya Kwanzaa, or first fruits of the harvest. And when Dr. Malani Karenga worked on this, he was um, very clear on how things should go. He felt that it should be a 7-day festival representing 7 important principles, and each principle in his mind helped to support community, identity, family throughout Africa and the diaspora. So, but this didn't take place though. It didn't really become formalized until about 1966. But again, an outgrowth of the devastation that had been caused by the Watts riots. So, 7 principles, or Nguzo Saba. Saba means 7. I remember that from the celebration. There's another African celebration we'll talk about sometime called Saba Saba Day. Anyway, Nguzo Saba. And the first principle is Umoja. And Umoja means unity. And Umoja is also symbolized by the black candle that would be in the center of the kinara, or the and you've got a wonderful example right behind you there, of the Kwanzaa candelabra, essentially. And it's about unity in the community, unity in terms of what we should be aiming for, and just unity, being together. Second candle, or the second, maybe I'll leave the candles out of this for a minute. We'll just talk about principles, would be Kujichakila, which is about self-determination. So self-determination in the sense that we have to define ourselves. We have to speak for ourselves. So that is how we are self-determined in terms of how we identify ourselves as individuals and as a community. The third principle is Ujima, or Ujima, I should say, which stands for collective work and responsibility. And it's about building and maintaining community and making our people, our brothers and our sisters, their problems our own, that we can really find ways to be nurturing and supportive of each other. Next one is Ujamaa, and that's about cooperative economics. Not necessarily socialism, but about trying to make sure that we support Black business, that we help lift up and see people in our own community get more, or their share of the dollars that go around. The next one is Nia, which is so easy to say, the shortest one there, and it stands for purpose. And purpose, in as much as we're talking about, again, building up our businesses, building up our communities, building up ourselves. The next value, or of Kwanzaa, is Kumba, which is creativity. And it's about doing whatever we can to leave our communities more beautiful than when we inherited them. So, I mean, maybe another way to look at Kumba is black joy. It's okay. And then the last one is Imani, or faith. And it's about believing passionately, believing deeply that our families and what we are trying to do is important and can make a difference. So those are the principles. And
The colors, the candles, because we have three red here and three green here. You mentioned about the black one.
the black
Is
one
there
is,
significance for the green and the red?
well, the colors themselves represent the colors of the many African countries. It's also the colors that were part of the bandera as Marcus Garvey helped to popularize it. And black stands for the people. Green stands for what the land and what they can develop. And red stands for the struggle, generally. There might be other interpretations. And so the candles are divided up and sort of fall into those three colors that represent the African flag of, I think it's part of the African Union flag as well, but they're certainly part of the bandera, or the what some people call the Emancipation Day flag. So the red candles would be Kujichaquila, Ujima, and Kumba. Sorry, Ujama and Kumba. And the green candles are going to be Nia, Ujima, and Imani. And you light it. It's interesting. Like the menorah, when you do Hanukkah, you start on one end and you just go to the other. You start on the right and you go to the left. But with Kwanzaa, you start in the middle. You start with us. And then the next candle is the red candle on the outside right, outside left. I don't want to get your people who are watching confused here, but it would be on the outside, not the inside, not the candle just beside it. And then the third day, the candle would be on the outside, well, my right, and that would be for Ujima. And you continue to alternate as the days go on, but always starting with the black candle, always giving more light to this festival, always giving more illumination to the struggle.
I have heard so much about this. I never ever heard about how it's actually lit. Thank you so much for that information. Is there a feast also involved with Kwanzaa? Is it just a one day, or is it a something that is done throughout the week?
There are what they call zawadi, or small gifts that you give out, especially to kids during the week. Because again, it's not supposed to be a particularly heavy duty commercial kind of
Right.
celebration. The focus is more on family and purposeful things. So at the end, that's when you have the big celebration with food. And food is actually also part of what you would put out. I mean, you have a lovely background there, Rudy, with the candles and with some of the other symbols. So let me just talk about some of those other symbols, because they include food. And I'm sort of all over the place here because I'm looking at that amazing background. But some of the symbols include the mazao, which are the crops. And so that's going to be things like fruits, nuts, and vegetables, particularly corn, because corn symbolizes, each kernel of corn symbolizes a member of the family and a member of the family to come. The mukeka is a placemat that the fruit, the mazao, would go on top of. And it's not supposed to be super expensive or elaborate. It's something that can be made out of straw, or cloth, maybe a kente cloth, whatever you might have in your household. So the ear of corn is called a vibunzi, and it would suggest affluence and the continuation of family. Um, the next one, of course, are the candles that we've already talked about. And the candles are very important because that's a moment in time when you all can come together and light them and maybe, make a decision about the youngest person in the family lighting them or giving people, each person a turn. And the and the candle holder itself is called the canara, which can be very simply made. You also have in your background there something that looks like an African inspired wine glass. Well, it's actually called the Unity Cup or the Kikombe
Mm.
Cha Moja.
That's great.
Mhm. And that is something that can be used to offer libations, particularly on the last day of Kwanzaa, when everybody is gathered together and it can be very solemn, but also very joyful. Um, and so you're inviting a libation, of course, invites the spirits of the ancestors. And because we are an extension of all that has gone before. And hopefully we're continuing the traditions that they have established in our own families and communities. So on the last night, you would have whatever kind of a ceremony you would like to have, as informal as it might be, gathering with family and friends. You might have a libation. You, of course, will have, by this time, all of the candles are supposed to be lit. And then you would have a feast. And the feast should include corn in some way, shape, or form, but it can also include foods that are culturally specific to your area. This is now a diasporic celebration. So it isn't going to be like in the American South, it might mean a soul food meal, some collard greens and some grits and some corn on the cob and some fried chicken, but it might mean something else coming from a Caribbean connection with maybe some rice and peas and
Mm.
some curry chicken and so on. So whatever your cultural food traditions might be, this is the time to have them. And just enjoy each other as a family. But I think it's also a time when people can come together and make some decisions about what they want to do as a community, what they want to do, not just as a family, but what they want to do as a community, and what kinds of things they might want to support to make those things happen. Um, we have in Toronto, we now have, for example, the creation of something called the NIA Center. We also have Karen Carter's project, where she's trying to add to a building, which is going to be, again, another opportunity to express and share more about the African Canadian community. We have the Canadian Black Music Archives that have just been launched at the Toronto Archives. These are things in our community that exist already that maybe we can find a way to support as a family, as individuals, as families, and as groups. So I think that, Kwanzaa is not just about let's light some candles. Kwanzaa is about let's find a way to help each other and build each other up and strengthen what we have and build on it even more so that following subsequent Kwanzaa celebrations will be drawing on that strength, moving from strength to strength.
Amen to everything you said. And just so you know, I did do an interview about the music archives that is going to be seen on Radio Blair Entertainment Media. So folks can look out for that interview. I want to say again, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I always feel inspired when I speak to you, and I learn so much. So let me say right now, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, all the best in the new year. And yes, you and I are definitely gonna get together for another Mervis show or anything else I can find that you and I can spend time together. Thank you again so much for this interview.
Thank you. It was great. And Haberi Gani, Um, it's part of it. We didn't talk about that, but it's all good. People are going to have to look up how they want to celebrate it, but I hope that they do.
Marigani.